Well, I'm so happy to be back with everybody this week. Last week I was away and getting to have a week off. And now this week Jared's away. We're playing tag team, so one of us is around. But yeah, Jared's off this week, and as I mentioned before, and so's Mike, who's interim pastor here. He's doing some stuff. He's away today as well, which means, as Simon said at the beginning, it's like the old days. It's just Josh's face again. I'm sorry about that. If it wasn't school holidays, we might have had someone else emceeing. But anyway, it's me. It's what you get. It's not the most beautiful, but what's the thing we say to our kids? You get what you get. You don't get upset. That's the logic we're going with today. But here we are. Jared started off our series that we're looking at currently, which is Group Life. We also looked at Group Life earlier this year. And the reason that we're looking at this again, and the reason we want to put a focus on this, is because life groups are people who meet together during the week to encourage one another. Life groups are such a big part of how churches care for one another, look out for one another, and get to experience community. One of the sayings you may hear from time to time is circles are better than rows. This is great, coming together, being part of church on a Sunday, and we're all here, but the interaction and the encouragement and the things that you can do in this limited capacity is not as full as it could be if you meet up and be able to chat with people around a table. When you have those more intimate environments, it's easier to be able to be a bit like, here's where I'm at. Whereas on a Sunday morning, it can be a bit like, I got there, I sang the songs, Lord, I did my part, and now I just want to grab my coffee and go home. Totally get that. Sundays can not always be the most engaging space. It depends on where we are and what we're entering into. But life groups offer an opportunity to be able to touch base with a group of people that we know, to be able to be filled up with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more faith, and to be able to help pour out into the lives of other people as well. We want to see as many people as possible participating in life groups. So last week Jared kicked us off, and we're going to take 2 more weeks to have a look at this. And then on the 31st of July, we've got the Group Link event where we want to try and see if we can get another couple of groups launched off. So let's get into the message for today. I have found over my lifetime, and please do a little bit of reflecting over your lifetime right now would be helpful. I found that over my lifetime, the people who have gone before me, the people who have lived before me, parents, grandparents, friends, parents, all the teachers, the people who influence you, the people who have gone before me, when I reflect back, I look at my life and I go, my life is richer and better because they made wise decisions and loved me well. Could you say the same for your life? Like if you reflect back and you think through your childhood, you think through key moments of your adulthood, you think through key moments of your life, you go, because someone in my life who went before me made wise decisions, made good decisions, made kind decisions, and they showed love towards me, I can say that my life has been impacted in a positive way. I think we can all say that, yeah, that's sort of true, isn't it? And we also know, unfortunately, that if that's true, the inverse is also true. Parts of my life and parts of your life have been influenced by poor decisions made by people who have gone before you. And there's parts of our lives which are worse off because people who should have been caring, loving and kind made decisions that were not caring, loving and kind. So there are parts of you that are beautiful. Parts of you that are beautiful because someone around you or someone before you made decisions to show love through quality time. I think we can all reflect back to an individual in our life who has shown love to us by the way that they spend time with us. Maybe there's someone in your life who showed conflict resolution in a healthy way. We have, I'm sure, quick to mind, people in our lives who do not show healthy conflict resolution. Whenever you try to offer up an opinion, they shut you down. Whenever they fight, they seem to really want to win. They want to be right rather than maintain the relationship. And people don't always do conflict resolution well, but there's people in our lives we've watched and gone, they were under stress, there was a problem there was an issue, maybe it was in the workplace, maybe in your family, and someone showed you, hey, here's a way that you can do conflict resolution. Or perhaps someone in your life did something really big, and they actually came up and apologized to you when they'd done something wrong. I've got a couple of key memories in my mind of people who I love and who had some sort of authority over me at the time when I was a kid, coming up to me and saying, hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And that was really powerful to see someone apologize to you and to be sincere in that. So there are parts of us that, thanks to those people in our lives, they just really are beautiful and cultivated because of how they did those things. But then, as I said, there are parts of us that are deeply hurt. There's parts of us that are deeply hurt because there were people in your life and people in my life who were playing a really key role who chose to show favoritism. Maybe when you're a kid and you had siblings, or you're with your cousins, or maybe when you're in school, or maybe even in your workplace, you do what everyone else does, but you look up at the people who should be showing you love and should be able to make wise decisions, and they seem to be showing favoritism and not choosing you, or not helping you in the way that they're helping other people. Maybe there's people in your life who just use hurtful language. There's people in your life who spoke to you in a way that you would never speak to someone else, and that it has wounded you in the way that they have spoken to you. Or maybe they've done something horrible, such as withholding love to get something from you. Now, there's no magic wand to be able to wave over our lives and take away the pain of the past. There's only an opportunity going forward that we can show to others something which was not shown to us. Maybe there's an opportunity in your life to give a voice, to give love, to give autonomy, to give peace, or perhaps to even give realistic expectations to other people, because you know in your life that that is what was lacking. Now, the reason that I believe this is true, and it's really great, if you've got your Bibles and you want to see where this is from, we're in Proverbs chapter 13. We're just going to pick out a couple of Proverbs here. But the reason I believe this is true, the best parts of who we are because of people who make wise decisions in our life, and the worst part of who we are, the parts that hurt, are because people did not make wise decisions, is because there's this great principle in the book of Proverbs that points us to wisdom and foolishness, and the link between where we spend our time with people who are wise and people who are foolish. So a quick heads up about Proverbs in case you are new to the Bible or haven't looked at it for a while. So Proverbs is a document in the Jewish Bible that is a collection of sayings from multiple sources that Jewish people and us as Christians, as Jesus followers, we find really useful as well. As I stressed when we looked at Proverbs at the beginning of the year, Proverbs are not like a magic sentence that makes things come true. For some of us, we grew up, and I had a little bit of this feeling as well. Okay, if I do what the proverb says, then I get the result the proverb says. Not always. As we grow up and as we mature and as we learn, the good guys don't always win. The people who are wise don't always get the best outcome. And sometimes in this life, the people who are cheeky, naughty, and mean, sometimes they come out the winners in life somehow. So when you look at Proverbs and you look at all the sayings that have been collected and put together, you got to understand that they're there to show that how do you follow God in this current life? Well, here's some ways you can do that. It doesn't mean that A plus B equals C, but it is some wisdom that we can learn and put together. If you look through the Old Testament books and Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and Job, you sort of get a picture of wisdom. And Proverbs is sort of the let's just chuck out information that we find is generally true and see what we can learn from that. So from Proverbs, there's some really helpful ones that we find. So in Proverbs 13, there's one there that says, "The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, so that one may avoid the snares of death." That's pretty good. Learn from wise people. The teachings of wise people, people who make good decisions, is something which gives us life so that we can avoid bad outcomes. That makes sense. Now, some other Proverbs that we have are a little bit more problematic because we don't always translate them well, or we use them in the wrong way. In that same chapter of Proverbs, there's this one which I think, even if you haven't been in church, you will sort of know this one. "Those who spare the rod hate their children, but those who love them are diligent to discipline them." We hear that one quite a lot, don't we? That one also gets misused quite a lot, doesn't it? In the past, unfortunately, people and adults and parents who don't make good decisions and aren't able to control their anger most of the time, they use this as justification for physical discipline, or they use it as justification to judge other people whose kids misbehave. They're like, well, if that kid's not doing what that kid should be doing, well, they're obviously not getting the right amount of discipline. So some of the Proverbs that we have, when applied wrong, can be a little bit misused or misconstrued, and some of us, unfortunately, have received people using that as a way of discipline or a way of force to get something which I think if we look at the life of Jesus, he gives us another way of being able to parent and be able to do things well. But here's the proverb that I want to come to today. that I think explains why the best of us and the worst of us are directly affected by who we spend our time with. This is what the proverb says. It says, "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fool suffers harm." Whoever walks with the wise will become wise, but whoever is a companion of fools suffers harm. Now, when it says those who walk with, in case you're not familiar with that phrase, when they're saying walk with, they mean people that you live alongside. As you go through life, as you walk through your days, who are the people that are around you? Because if you are surrounded and walking and living with people who are wise, who are making good decisions, who are on the same track as you, then that's really great. It means, or what the proverb is implying here, is that you are going to grow wise because of your proximity to these people. And I'm sure if you reflected long enough, you could go, yeah, I've seen that in my life. When I hang out with this group of people, I make better choices, whether it's financially, whether it's for my own mental health, whether it's for how I spend my time, whether it's for just decisions I make with friendships and relationships. This group of friends and the way that they operate gives me context for making wise decisions. But if you are hanging out with someone who is a fool, it's interesting. It doesn't say you will become foolish. It says you will suffer harm. And I think the reason that distinction is there is because this is, I believe, what we've all experienced. When you walk with someone who is wise, you make good decisions. When you walk around someone who is foolish, someone who makes decisions that are not in the best interest of yourself, of others, of society, what generally happens is you generally recognize and say, ooh, I do not like the way that person made that decision. Most of us, when we are around foolish people who make bad choices, when we get hurt in friendships, when we get hurt in the workplace, when we get hurt within our families, most of us go, I don't want to do that. Sometimes we get peer pressured into joining in, but for the majority of us, if we were to sit down and be free and just be able to think through, do I want to make the decisions that led to the consequences that this person has displayed to me? Most of us would be like, no, thank you. I saw how they handled their money. I saw how they handled that relationship. I saw how they handled that argument. I saw how they handled their faith. I saw how they handled their spouse. I saw how they handled that moment. I don't want that. Most of us, when we see that unfold, we go, no, thank you. But when we are in close proximity to people who make those foolish decisions, we are in proximity to the consequences of those decisions, and that can harm us. That can lead us to outcomes that are not in our best interest. Just because of our proximity to the decision maker, there is some collateral damage. It wasn't you who wrecked that relationship, but you were standing next to them. It wasn't you who were in that particular situation doing the wrong thing, but because of what they did, you were associated with them, or you bear part of the consequence of them. So when we're around wise people, we go and we say, we want to make those decisions. When we're around foolish people, we generally go, we don't want that decision. But sometimes there are consequences just because of our proximity to them. Now, as we go through life, you might be thinking in your head, okay, well, who are the wise people? Who are the foolish people? Who am I hanging out with? The problem is, for most of us in our lives, people fit both categories at different times, don't they? Right? Sometimes you're hanging out with people and they're making wise decisions, and that's awesome and you're really appreciating that. Then they have a bit of a season and you're like, I don't really like where this is heading, and they swap over. And sometimes you've got people in your life and you're like, I don't really want to hang out with them, but maybe because they're part of the family, maybe because they're part of the workplace, maybe because they're a friend of your friend, you sort of have to see them. And then they go into a season of wise decision making. You start to go, actually, I don't mind hanging out with this person now, and you get a bit buddy-buddy. And so people swap back and forth all the time. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, am I a wise or am I a foolish person? Depends on who you're hanging out with. To some people in your life, you are someone who is making wise decisions. And then to some other people in your life, you're someone who is making foolish decisions. And sometimes it just depends on the context that you happen to be with. So as we go through time, we switch back and forth. Sometimes we just have really bad moments, and sometimes we have really good moments, and a lot of moments. I want to tell a quick story. It's fictitious and it's made up, so if it's bad, blame the storyteller. Jesus tells all these parables, right? And you read through the New Testament and you're like, man, look at Jesus, how he's able to tell stories. So I had a crack. I'm like, let me try and come up with a story. And I don't know how good this is. So tell me what you think afterwards. let's meet a fictitious character named Jimmy. Jimmy was surfing the internet one day and an ad popped up, Outback Splash. Oh, Outback Splash, that sounds amazing, says Jimmy. Jimmy goes and he's like, I really want to go to Outback Splash. I can't go by myself because when you go to experiences like these by yourself, they're not as fun. So Jimmy calls Johnny. Hey, Johnny, what are you doing? I'm doing fine. Jimmy, what are you doing? Mate, do you want to come to Outback Splash with me? Mate, that'd be amazing. Let's go to Outback Splash. So Jimmy gets excited and he says to Johnny, let's go tomorrow. Let's do this. Outback Splash, tomorrow morning, I'm swinging by 7 a.m., picking you up, because from Lesmurdy to Outback Splash, I Googled this, it takes between 30 and 40 minutes, or 40 and 50, one of those two. It's going to take a while. Let's get 7:30, let's get there, let's get going. This is going to be awesome. Johnny pauses. Hey, Jimmy, let's go. Loving it, love the energy. Can we maybe go in a couple of days? I just want to make sure we've thought this through, and let's clear up a couple of things first. So Jimmy says, fine, let's do some prep work, whatever. And now, lucky Jimmy listened to Johnny, because there's a few things that he may have overlooked. First of all, he didn't know it was going to take between 40 and 50 minutes, so Jimmy thought, let's get up at 7:30, we'll be there by 8, no problems, this is going to be fine. The second thing is that he didn't account for how expensive it was going to be. Now, this is in January, so it's hot. All the water slides are open. It's Outback Splash. I Googled it and found out you can go in the winter to all the mazes and stuff, but obviously not the water slides, because who's doing that, right? And he found out, the tickets are a little bit more expensive than he thought, so he had to rejuggle his finances a bit. One of the things he found out when Johnny informed him was that, hey, buddy, it doesn't actually open until 10 a.m. Could you imagine if he just got in his car and he's like, I'm going, and they would get there, Outback Splash, and then sit there for like an hour and a half in their car. I mean, that's a killer, isn't it? And then, of course, in classic fashion, as Jimmy, who was prone to get up and go, he realized, towels, bathers, change of clothes, sunscreen, you're just general things you need when you're going out in the January sun to go and experience this whole thing. Should probably make sure all of that is checked up and ready to go. So Jimmy reflected after going to Outback Splash, and he went to Johnny. He said, thank you, Johnny, for making me wait. Because if I'd gone with my intentions and what I knew, it would have been a day, but would I have enjoyed it as much as I could have? No. And Johnny says, no problem. I'm aware of your character and aware of who you are. So I made a wise decision on behalf of both of us. So Johnny and Jimmy had a great time. And enjoyed it more than Jimmy would have had it originally. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, it's a stupid story. I love it. It speaks to how much I really want to go to Outback Splash, if we're being honest. I really wanted to go. I'm surprised they're open and want to go do the mazes. Anyway, here's the thing. Jimmy made a really wise decision to let Johnny into his car and to help him as he went on that particular adventure. When you and I are going through life, we're not going to Outback Splash. I know that. But there are places that we want to be in the areas when it comes to our faith or our family or how we spend our time or our relationships or our finances. There is a location in your life right now of where you're aiming for. At work, at family, in the home, with your kids, with your grandparents, with your grandkids. There's things that you want, right? There's places that you want to be. And as you're driving through life, going to your particular destinations, you want to make sure that the people who are with you in the car are the right people. You want to make sure that whoever's in your car with you is the right person. For many of us in our life, as we've been going through, particularly in our youth days and at key transition moments, we have been incredibly lucky, blessed, God has been in it, or whatever you want to put to it, that there have been key people in our lives that we let into our car, so to speak, that we let into our life as we went through a transition moment, who helped us make a wise decision. When I was growing up and I got my P plates, I was really excited. I grew up in Kalgoorlie, so everything was super close. And one of the fun things about growing up in Kalgoorlie was that everything's super close. And it's only 5 minutes till you're out bush, and then you can do whatever you want. So I had my P plates and driving around and everything, and I said, let's go out bush, all right? So I had my mum's car. And I thought, let's do this. Let's go out bush, have some fun. And now she had just like this little Holden Barina, yellow car. One of the doors wasn't quite the right yellow to the rest of the car. Anyway, and I thought to myself, this is going to be fine. And one of the mates brought out a four-wheel drive, and the two of them had four-wheel drives, and we were rolling out there, and it's just salt lakes and a couple of little hills and everything. And as I'm out there driving, one of my mates jumps into my car. He's like, let's do it. Let's go up this little hill. So I was like, okay. So I saw the four-wheel drive go up first, and there I am in the little Holden Barina. I'm like, yeah, well, let's do this. And as I get ready to go up, my mate's like, do it. And it went over, actually. Okay. I was actually really surprised. I don't know what damage got done underneath it. But it drove. It was fine. In hindsight, not a great decision to have done that. But the part which got me was he's like, let's go for a drive. So we drove over the hill. That part was fine. Whew. And then we kept driving and having fun. And then I noticed, coming up, there's a sort of a wet patch here. I don't want to get stuck, obviously. And so I slammed on the brakes because I didn't realize how quickly it was coming. And front wheels go in, back wheels are out. Good, no problem. Put in reverse. Let's just reverse out of this front wheel drive. Okay. So put the foot down, dig it straight in. And my mate looks at me and he goes, oh, sorry. Because I knew in general, I don't drive like that. But he was in the front seat with me and I was listening to him and I made a foolish decision. We left the car overnight. We got a ride back on a motorbike. We came out the next day, rescued it. It was fine. And then, I don't know how I told my parents about it. But anyway, somehow, I think I didn't and then found out later. But anyway, it's all good. It's in the past now. In that moment, though, like reflecting on that, I'm actually incredibly glad that I had that experience where I let someone into the front seat of my car. I felt pressured to do something that I shouldn't have done. And do you know what that set me up for later? When I was driving with other people, I thought to myself, and I kept that as a thing to say, don't give in to that pressure again. Now, for males who are on their P plates, the chances of crashing is very, very high. When you put a male next to them, it increases. When you put a female in the back or a male in the back, it goes up even higher again. I learned, thanks to that experience, that I need to make sure that when I'm driving, I don't listen to the noise coming from that seat. And there was someone in particular that I just knew it wasn't that guy. He was one of my best friends. But there's someone else who I knew that I just didn't have the power and the willpower to stand up to them. And I never let them drive with me. I made sure I'm never going to drive in the car with this person because I know they're going to say, let's do something. And I know I'm not strong enough to say no to that. And by the grace of God, I managed to go through without any incidences through my P plates and through the most dangerous time of driving on the road for a male in that age bracket because I had an experience going, who is in my car matters. And I've got to make sure that I have people next to me who are saying the right thing. And if there's going to be someone in the car with me who I don't trust, then I need to get rid of them or not be the one driving. Just not be there. So when it comes to life, when it comes to decisions you make as you walk with the wise, as you drive to the destinations that you have for your family, for your workplace, for whatever it may be, we want to make sure that the people who are around us are people who are making wise decisions. Now, does that mean that we don't engage with people who we don't think are making wise decisions? No. Like we engage with everybody. Be nice. Be a kind person. But the people we let into that inner decision making, the people that we let sit with us in our car, the people who we let into our lives in an intimate way, we want to be asking the question, hey, are they going where we want to go? Are they making wise decisions? Are they a good influence on me? Am I a better person because I am with them? Or am I actually receiving some collateral damage because they're making unwise choices and I am alongside them? Life is not meant to be traveled alone. God made you, I believe, to experience this time on earth with other people. We just need to make sure that we have the right people who are speaking deeply into our lives. People who are going in the same direction as us. People who are wanting the best for us as we go forward. So, one of the places I believe that this happens well within a church community is life groups. Now, for some of you who are listening, and for some who, if you're online or if you're listening back at a later date, there are seasons in our life, and been seasons in my life, where being part of a life group is just not practical or just not the right call. I totally understand that, and I get that. But for some of us, we need to be surrounded by people, talking deeply with other people in a context where we're all sort of heading the same direction. And that's where life groups come into the picture. Life groups are an opportunity to be able to share the table, share our lives, share the experience of doing life with other people in a context where we can be open, honest, and be able to have feedback and relate and be able to enjoy our time with other people. So if you're someone who has been out of life group for a while, for a season, then I want to encourage you to come along to July 31st. Come see me if you want to get into a life group. Or maybe if you're someone who's never been in a life group and you're sort of like, oh yeah, okay, sure, let's go check this out, then please come be a part of July 31st. Come and investigate that or come and chat to myself. And if you're someone at the moment who's in a season where you're just like, it just isn't working or not the right space, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that you're having those opportunities of faith discussions somewhere. It doesn't need to be in a life group here at LBC. It can be with some friends who you catch up with a coffee every now and then. It can be other contexts in which you get to really just have a chat with someone and say, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's where I am in my faith. Here's what's going on in my life. And just be able to have those conversations. You've got to be having them somewhere. For a majority of us, life groups are a great space to be able to have those conversations, have that accountability, have those discussions. Now, next week, we're going to be very practical and talk through what life groups look like and what we do in life groups. But for today, I just want to finish off with this. If the principle of Proverbs that you walk with the wise and become wise, walk with the fools and suffer harm, if that's true, and I think we have experienced enough of life to go, yeah, I've had that happen. If the best parts of who we are enhanced because people who make good decisions, and if you have a destination in mind for your life, if you are going, I want to get to a certain place, then I want to encourage you, join a life group. And if you're not going to join a life group, make sure you're having those conversations somewhere. Make sure you're having those conversations with people. How are you really going? What's happening in your life? How are you going in your relationships with your family? How are you going in your relationship with God? How are you going in your finances? How are you going with how you're using your time? Having those conversations is so important because when you're surrounded by wise people and you're talking about those things, it helps you make wise decisions in those areas. And I believe that when Jesus lived 2,000 years ago, when he died and rose again, he gave us such an example to follow, such a wise example to follow about how to live our life. But the problem is that we don't get a contextual way of how to live that out. And that's what church community is for. Because I don't know if you noticed, a lot's changed in 2,000 years. It's great to look at the words of Jesus, and we need to be reminded, to be able to have our relationship with God continue to grow. We need to be reading the Bible, praying, seeking out the Holy Spirit. We need to be doing all those things. But contextually, how does that look in this life, 21st century Australia, here and now? We need people. We need people who have followed Jesus for a long time. We need people who are just discovering him, and we need to live together and grow together and say, hey, how do we follow Jesus here and now? Well, let's talk to one another. Let's share how we're going. Let's be part of a group. Let's be part of our Sunday morning expressions. Let's just be part of church community. And let's see and continue to experience what Jesus has for us within LBC and for our community by allowing him to continually change us from the inside out. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for who you are. Just thank you that you loved us, that you initiated just this incredible act of grace through Jesus and his death and resurrection. Lord God, this morning, for those of us who are going through life right now who are feeling a little bit alone, I pray that you will show us the people in our lives that we can come alongside and we can go to and say, hey, can we have a chat? For those of us who are part of a life group, who have those connections, part of us who have those spaces to unpack our faith and who we are and how we're dealing with those things, we say thank you for that, Lord, and we just pray that those continue to be a place of stretching, growing, and discovering more of your grace and who you really are. But most importantly, Jesus, we pray that your redeeming love that you have for all of us is expressed day in, day out through your people to a world which needs to hear the truth that they are loved by you. So be with us this week, Lord. In your name and for your glory. Amen.